Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Episode 9 is scheduled to release on December 5th, and the title for this episode is called The Drop, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing spoilers for this upcoming episode. This episode will cover chapters 520 and beyond of the Bleach manga, with the most recent episode covering chapters 515 to 519. Credit to the Bleach wiki page for the spoilers that will be provided in this video based on the Bleach manga. In Soul Society, Nanao enters Shunsui's room where he's reading a letter which informs him that he'll become the new captain of the 1st Division and captain commander of the Gotei 13. He tells Nanao it may be the last time that they're together. Back in the Soul King Palace in Tenjiro's domain, Ichigo is held underwater in the hot springs repeatedly by Tenjiro's underlings, Kazuo and Kazuhiro. After Ichigo continuously tries to fight them off, Tenjiro punches Ichigo, who unconsciously counters his sudden assault. Tenjiro, noting this means he's fully recovered, states he'll now send him to the next palace. When Renji insists he will accompany Ichigo, Tenjiro punches him. Surprised when Renji doesn't go flying, he agrees to allow Renji to go as he has healed enough. After they leave, Tenjiro talks with his underlings, who are impressed by both Ichigo and Renji. Tenjiro notes Ichigo exceeded his expectations and managed to hurt him. Back in Soul Society in the Central 46 compound, Shunsui successfully convinces the reluctant Central 46 he be allowed to appoint Nanao and Genshiro Okakiba as his co-lieutenants. He also proposes to train Kenpachi and teach him the way of the sword, which elicits a strong negative reaction from the members of Central 46, who fear they would not be able to stop Kenpachi if he rebelled against them, stating Yamamoto stopped training him after just one day. Shunsui, convincing them to allow it, assigns Yachiru Unohana, the first Genpachi, to the task of training him. Back at the Soul King Palace, Ichigo and Renji fall towards Kiryu Hikufune's palace as they argue over which of them will break the other's fall. As they are about to land, they discover Kon, who had hidden himself in Ichigo's robes, as they decided to use him to cushion their landing. After Kiryu greets them, she prepares a banquet for them to feast upon. When Ichigo initially thinks there'll be a catch to being fed, Kiryu notes being around Kisuke Urahara has made him overly suspicious. While she goes to make dessert, Renji, Ichigo, and Kon start devouring the food. Ichigo wonders if it's alright for them to be treated to hot springs and feasts while those in Serete prepare for battle, but Renji reassures him they need to be fully recovered before they can train hard. Kiryu, returning with the dessert, has become much slimmer, leaving the three shocked and confused. She reveals that when she cooks, she uses up her Rietsu, and thus she tries to put on as much weight as possible to counter the weight loss which results from cooking. Shortly afterwards, Kiryu tells them that the Royal Guard members have all contributed something significant to the history of Soul Society as recognized by the Soul King. Kiryu is responsible for the creation of substitute souls, and she used the same principles to strengthen their Rietsu from the food they just ate. Kiryu states that Ichigo and Renji should have a whole different level of Rietsu in their bodies than they've ever held before. She warns them that in the next palace, they will meet the unpredictable Uetsu Namaya, the man who created the Zanpakuto. While Uetsu is told Ichigo and Renji have arrived, Kon complains about Ichigo and Renji using him as a cushion to land and how he was dragged away from the last palace by them despite wanting to stay. The three are loudly greeted by Uetsu, who identifies himself as the #1 Zanpakuto creator. He brings them to a building where they are welcomed by a number of ladies and formally introduces himself, forcing them to perform an elaborate formal meeting, which was apparently a prank. Mera, who is one of Uetsu Namaya's assistants, has the group follow her to where they're really supposed to go, which is a hut on the edge of a precipice. Ichigo and Renji, stepping inside, fall a short distance. Uetsu then tells them he is the only Shinigami in his palace and that the women they saw were actually Zanpakuto. Noting Ichigo's inability to recognize the difference, he states that they have no love for Zanpakuto, which is why they can't tell the difference. He shatters Renji's Zanpakuto, saying a Zanpakuto which is not loved breaks easily. As they notice beings around them, Uetsu states the wrath of the Zanpakuto is around them, and if they can get out alive, he will reforge their blades. Ichigo and Renji find themselves pitted against nameless Zanpakuto, which Uetu reveals to be the Asauchi. Namaya reveals the Asauchi every member of the Gotei 13 is given upon graduation from the Shinigami Academy is essentially a blank template, and over time, the essence of the wielder's soul is projected onto the blade, thus creating the wielder's personal Zanpakuto. These Asauchi are all made by Uetu himself. Uetu further explains the Asauchi feel anger towards Ichigo and Renji because of their incorrect usage of their Zanpakuto, and finally asks who is truly superior in the relationship between Shinigami and Zanpakuto. Meanwhile, on the lowest floor of the central underground prison called Mugen, Kenpachi, Zaraki, and Unohana enter a dark, cavernous space. Unohana explains this is the only place she and Kenpachi could freely fight, and it's only due to special permission from the captain commander they are permitted there. Under normal circumstances, those who are not criminals would not be allowed there. Kenpachi states if not for their strength, they would be deemed criminals themselves. Unohana, giving Kenpachi a chilling look, comments on how talkative he's been, revealing a scar above her heart. Unohana says her wound is throbbing, and Kenpachi, pointing at the scar over his left eye, echoes her. In another room, Captain Commander Kyoraku remarks upon the strength of the original Gotei 13 and says their 11th Division Captain Unohana was famed for her mastery of different swords and schools of swordsmanship, taking the name Yachiru. He says when Kenpachi and Unohana clash, it's inevitable one of them will die. Back in Mugen, the two jump towards each other and the fight begins. Asane enters Unohana's room and finds a note with her name on it. Meanwhile, Yachiru enters Kenpachi's room and finds his eye patch on a cushion. One read-through of the note leaves Asane in tears, while Yachiru understands with sadness what Kenpachi leaving behind his eye patch means. Unohana and Kenpachi continue fighting. Unohana easily dodges Kenpachi's strikes and slices the side of his throat, wheeling him across the room. Kenpachi lunges at her, but to no avail as Unohana kicks away his armed hand. She then attempts to cut off his head, but he manages to dodge and throw her off just in time. The two charge at each other, swords clashing and face to face. Unohana comments that he's wise enough to remove his eye patch before coming to fight her. However, she calls him pathetic, asking him if this is the extent of his power. With her free hand, she plunges a dagger into his back and goes back a distance. She says that he cannot possibly enjoy fighting with only one arm and not doing anything with the other. Kenpachi scoffs at her roundabout tactics to damage him and exclaims she is no longer the person he once respected. Unohana retorts that one does not use the word respect when addressing the enemy, especially in a fight to the death. With Kenpachi cornered against a tree and her sword at his throat, she tells him that she hasn't changed and that in their previous fight, he never gave her a chance to use those roundabout tactics. Kenpachi states that he worshipped her and that he felt fear for the first time in their fight. He wanted to fight like her. He asks if he's gonna die without knowing what it's like to defeat her, but Unohana proceeds to impale him by his throat. Dazed for a moment, Kenpachi regains his self-control and finds his sword clashing against hers. Unohana remarks that he seemed to have lost consciousness for a brief second. Kenpachi wonders what just happened, but ignores the thought and states it's time to use his basic instincts, not his brain. Unohana notes that he won't die, he grows stronger every time he's on the brink of death, and that it's the oversight he imposed on himself as well as her sin. So those are the spoilers for Bleach 1000 Year Blood War episode 9, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. Once again, this episode is scheduled to release on December 5th. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.